Hi, I'm Emily.
And I'm Julia.
And this is the Bad Bitch podcast.
I'm so pleased to be here again with you, my love. I love doing this with you.
I mean, it's just an excuse for us to hang out,
It is.
which is perfect. And then we just record it and then it turns into a podcast.
Exactly. Which they interestingly say is not a reason to start a podcast, but I think it's like the best reason.
What, the reason to start a podcast isn't to hang out with your friends?
No, it's like a lot of people will start podcasts because they'll have really cool interactions with their friends and they think, oh, this is really cool, we're going to record it and put it out as a podcast. And they're like, that's absolutely the worst reason to start a podcast. But I think it's the best reason.
Well, it is, but it is actually the reason. We did it because we want to help people discover their inner bad bitch.
Exactly.
We just happen to love hanging out with each other and then we're recording it.
Yes.
So before we get into this week's episode, we have another fabulous sponsor. So we are sponsored this week by ELJ Property Search. That's eljpropertysearch.com. And this is run by the brilliant Emma Lloyd-Jones. Now, Emma is a property search agent, which isn't something that lots of people know is a service you can have or exist. It's more something you see in American property search. But what Emma does is Emma basically finds a house for you. And particularly in this area of the country where we live in South Kent in the Weald, but also in East Sussex, property agents are really helpful because, as I discovered when I tried to buy my house in the countryside, a lot of properties get sold before they're even listed. Or they're not even listed and then a property agent finds them. So if you're looking for a premium property for a family home in this area, which is a beautiful part of the world, amazing countryside, just absolutely gorgeous, it's actually really great to get a property agent. Emma will find out exactly what you need, go hunting for properties, find properties that aren't even on the market, talk to agents in advance, find out what's coming onto the market so you're the first person in to see them, negotiate with the sellers. She just makes it really easy. And Emma used to work in the property market in London. So if you're wanting to move out of London into the countryside, she's the perfect person to help you make that move. And in fact, I wish I'd known Emma because it might not have taken me 2 years. 2 years to find a house to buy. So highly recommended ELJ Property Search.
Amazing. What's been going on this week, my love?
Oh my goodness. Well, 2 things, bonuses and birthdays.
Yes.
So I had my birthday, as you know.
You did.
And we celebrated together.
Yes.
I'm normally a super big birthday fan. I like to over-celebrate. I mean, it's kind of greedy, but I love to celebrate with friends. And this year, I wasn't feeling it as much. I think I was still just getting over being really unwell at the start of the year. But also, I just have never, ever felt less my age in my life.
Love
and
it.
my dad called me and said, "You're halfway." like it's very upbeat, like to the end. And
Thanks, Dad.
Thanks, Dad. He knows how to cheer someone up on their birthday. But I don't feel halfway. I feel like I've just gotten started. I feel at least 10 years younger. So I think I was just feeling a little bit discombobulated by it. And I went for a walk with a friend and had a good chat. And actually, we turned it around into a real place of gratitude that I'm really grateful because I don't feel my age. I'm incredibly fit and healthy. I've got tons of energy to do what I love. And then I feel 10 years younger, but then I think about everything I've done in the last 10 years and I'm super grateful for that. I've started my business. I've written a book. I've bought and renovated 2 houses. I've, met amazing people moving down to the countryside. I've started this podcast with you. So I actually turned it into a place of gratitude. And actually, I'm really grateful for the last 10 years. I just think my birth certificate is just lying. I can't possibly be 45. It makes no sense at all. So I'm just going to rebrand myself as a 35-year-old. I'm going to handle it.
And do you know what as well? One of my colleagues at work explains this beautifully. He's like, it's like this, the number is, the age is just something that we've made up. He was like, if it was like dog years, and it was like every 7 years was 1 year, you'd be much younger. It's how you feel.
I know. Totally. And Marissa Peer, who's a bit of an expert on this, she's a hypnotherapist and she's written a book, You Can Be Younger. And she says, our body responds so much to the messages we tell
100%.
ourselves. And I'm always telling myself that I'm young.
Yes.
And acting probably in quite a young way as well. And living in a young way. And it does keep me young. So I think it was just being confronted by the number. But speaking of numbers, the other big thing going on is it's bonus time in the city. And I have lots of clients in financial services. And I used to work there. So I know how weird it is that a big chunk of your salary can be this number that you're surprised with once a year. And you don't really know exactly what it's going to be. and it often is a negative surprise. It's rarely like way better than you think it will be. So I've been helping clients navigate the stress of that. But also what happens is a lot of people wait till they get their bonus before they resign to go on to another job. So then you get a sudden load of people resigning and moving and navigating how they negotiate their gardening leave. But then also that creates openings for other people who are looking to move. This is now a good time to start looking because roles can suddenly unexpectedly come up. So I've had lots of calls with clients navigating this time of year. And it is weird. And I do think it is a weird way to be valued, is to have this kind of surprise, almost sometimes arbitrary bonus that's given to you. And you might be watching thinking, I don't feel that sorry for people receiving bonuses. But it can be a big element of their salary. So it's quite hard to plan your life when you don't know what that number is. And I think it's much better to motivate people by being very clear of, if you hit this target, this is what you get in terms of pay or promotion or development. I think it's that lack of clarity and that uncertainty can create a lot of stress for people this time of year. So just helping clients navigate that.
Yeah,
so what's been going on with you?
I had an amazing time this week. So I went to see Gillian Anderson at the Royal Albert Hall. And Gillian Anderson, in case you don't know, wrote a book called Want. And she went out to all the women of the world and she said, submit to me your fantasies. They're anonymous, but I'm going to compile women's sexual fantasies into a book. And so she created this book called One. It's a beautiful pink hardback cover book. And so on the back of that, she did it last year. She did like a reading at the Royal Albert Hall, and she did it again this year. And I was desperate to go because last year she had some amazing guests. She had Olivia Colman, she had Olivia Wilde, and it was just an amazing evening. So fast forward to this year, she did it again, and I went with my friend Lou. And she doesn't announce who the guests are, so it's a surprise. So we're sitting there, and obviously I'm a huge fan of Gillian Anderson. I want her to be my girlfriend. I would love that, especially when she's in The Fall. Did you watch The Fall?
Of course I didn't. Why do you ask me these questions?
In The Fall, she's just
First of all, what is The Fall?
It's about a serial killer set in Ireland.
Okay, I definitely didn't watch it.
I mean, it's an on the edge of your seat watch, and it was really funny because my friend and I went on to one of our other friends to watch it, and we kept saying that she had to watch it. So she finished to say the whole series. Meanwhile, myself and my other friend, we were like, we're too scared, we're not finishing it.
Wait,
so,
you made your friend watch this scary show and then you didn't watch it yourself?
That is correct. But anyway, Gillian Anderson is a badass. In that series, she's a badass in real life. She brought a live show to the Royal Albert Hall where she did readings from the book of women's fantasies. And the other guests that she had were so major. She had Gemma Chan, who is obviously an amazing actress and powerhouse in the film industry. I was very excited about that because I know her from Crazy Rich Asians, which is one of my guilty pleasures of films. But for me, and she had the lovely actor that plays Queen Charlotte on Bridgerton. That was amazing. She had Belle Priestley, Diana Silvers, Joy Crooks, the musician, was there. The singer.
I'm sorry, so far
I know.
I'm drawing blanks.
Okay.
Name someone I would actually know.
You're going to know the next one. She brought out the second person she brought out was Dame Helen Mirren.
Oh my God.
When I say I cried, I actually cried. And one of my most iconic moments of my life forever will be hearing Helen Mirren in the Royal Albert Hall saying, because a pounding from behind is always life affirming.
Wow.
Yeah.
I bet she never expected she'd be saying that either.
I know, it was so funny. A lot of the other wonderful people who appeared on stage were like, I can't believe I get to say these words and talk about these things in the Royal Albert Hall.
I mean, this is fascinating on many levels. So, why do you think the actors, first of all, really want to come and do this? Because it is quite an interesting thing. They're not playing a part, but they're reading a real person's fantasy out loud. Yes. And it's very, very intimate.
Yes.
Why do you think the actors want to do it?
I think it's just important because there was 3,000 there were 3,000 people in the Royal Albert Hall, and it was just such a wonderful, supportive atmosphere. And these fantasies will range from like in the woodland to pirate ships to in spaghetti, and it's like
sex and spaghetti. Okay,
yes.
Look, we're not going to get into the details, but
it's just, I think it was just really, it's important, and maybe these people felt it was important to just talk about these things and just reassure people that everyone thinks like everyone will have different fantasies, and that's okay.
So it's kind of getting rid of the stigma.
I think so. And also Gillian Anderson is an amazing ambassador for a charity called War Child, and so she brought the women together, I think, as well, to support that effort. That's why I think as well they appeared.
So the people in the audience, because, you know, I have to say, for me, this would be my nightmare.
Yes.
I do not want to go and sit amongst other women listening to sexual fantasies being read out loud. I don't know, for me it's such an intimate thing. I don't want to share that as an experience. So, but you loved it. So what's so powerful and wonderful about sitting there and hearing those things amongst other people?
Do you know what, for me as well, is it was the way they wrote them. Number one, like I said to my friend I was with, because obviously people will feel uncomfortable in that situation. There's a lot of like talk of liquids and bits and pieces and everything like that. And people are going to laugh naturally because they find it slightly uncomfortable, on edge, or it's just something new. So that's like their reaction. But I said to Lou, I was like, I'm not going to laugh because this is someone's like fantasy, and who am I to say that this is weird or funny? It's just it was just really, the thing that struck it for me was some of these fantasies that they read out were just so beautifully written. They were just, it was about creating this beautiful experience rather than about the sexual desire. Obviously is a big part of it, but they were just, the way they communicated the whole range of feelings that they were feeling when they were having this fantasy, rather than, I'm just going to say it, right, it's not all just about getting off, getting in, getting out, and that's it. It was the whole thing, the range of emotions. There were fantasies that they read out as well that talked about, I've got to give myself goosebumps, when the lady was like, I fantasize about this and I fantasize about that, and actually now I'm writing this in paper, it's quite cathartic, and I'm realizing that my fantasies are kind of taking over my life, and actually all I want is just to be loved, and I need to now step into the world, and it's my fantasies of the world that I built, which have really saved me from quite a dark place. I might be mashing a couple together, but yeah, it was about how writing it was cathartic, and it gave them a release to go and actually live their lives in the real world.
Well, I love that, because what were we going to say?
There was an amazing story. So Gillian Anderson, one final thing, Gillian Anderson said, like last year there was a lady that came to it, and she met Gillian Anderson at the meet and greet afterwards, and she said to Gillian Anderson, the lady came up to her and said, you read my, Olivia Wilde read my letter out on stage. And it was, and Gillian Anderson was obviously like, that's amazing. Now, the lady's fantasy was a fantasy that she'd written about her female neighbour.
Oh, God.
And so...
Did her neighbour hear it?
It's better than that, my love. She met Gillian Anderson. She was like, it's amazing. I was in the audience. You read my fantasy out. And here's the lady from my fantasy who is now her new partner.
No.
Yeah. It was amazing.
I mean, that could have gone really badly wrong. The neighbour might have ended up having to move.
But yes, obviously... she managed to bring that, and obviously there are elements of fantasies that obviously are better to stay in as fantasies, but it was just really a really beautiful end to a wonderful evening. I
love that, and there's bits of it that are so aligned with the Bad Bitch reset and what we're doing here, because a big part of that is about being authentic, being honest with yourself about what you want, which I think is amazing. And then, of course, this event is full of bad bitches, obviously Gillian Anderson, Helen Mirren, role models. I think one of the ways that we can stay confident and powerful is by surrounding ourselves with powerful female role models. So just an evening spent with those women and the women in the audience, you probably left feeling really like empowered.
100%. And like with Dame Helen Mirren, I said to my friend, I was like, it just reminds me that to be this powerful, iconic woman, you don't have to be loud, you don't have to be brash, you can just quietly, because everyone was going wild literally in the Albert Hall, as you can imagine. And she just went, and everyone like just piped down.
She's so calming. I used to live near her, and I used to see her about, and I'd see her at the bus stop. I mean, she's so low key in her day-to-day life, but that's wonderful because she's just got such natural inner confidence. It's not about being showy, and I do think we need to tap into those role models.
Definitely.
That's amazing.
From one iconic bitch to another, very briefly. So there has obviously been the fashion weeks happening. Gucci, Demna is the new designer. Well, I say he's new, he's not that new. This is his third collection for Gucci. But at the end, which everyone lost their minds over, including me, he brought out Kate Moss to walk the runway. And she wore a amazing long black sequin dress. Now, there's a lot of history to this particular dress because it was a copy of a copy of a copy, maybe of a copy. There's at least 3 copies of this dress, maybe 4, but
all Gucci.
No, they're not. They've done it's this one that Gucci have recreated. Originally, the way the dress came to prominence was that Judy Christie wore it in shampoo. Kate Moss obviously loved it. Johnny Depp, when she was with him, had the dress made for her in the 90s, and now Gucci have recreated it, and they sent her down the runway in this dress. And as well, it's a very low backless dress, so you can see like top of butt crack.
Oh, gosh.
And he sent her down with the Gucci logo thong that was very iconic and which was made popular by Tom Ford. In terms of fashion moments, it is just, again, another very iconic moment because obviously that bitch slays. And to have that that throwback to what was the start, I think, of a real golden age with Gucci, with the Tom Ford taking over and Tom Ford's tenure, it was just a wonderful moment that fashion people loved.
I love it. And also just using, older models.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, Kate Moss is extraordinary. It's not like not like the rest of the runway was going to be 50-year-olds, but I think it's really positive to see that and to see women that age really owning and embracing fashion and not feeling like they need to dress quietly, but just dress how you want. And bringing it back to the beginning of birthdays, of dressing however you feel, and dressing young can make you feel younger, and just letting go of any preconception of how you should dress.
Yes.
I love that.
Oh, iconic bitches everywhere.
Well, see, this is great. See, I don't need to pay attention to what's happening because you tell me. It's great. I can just be busy working. It's fantastic.
You can.
Great
I'll already tell you the bits that interest me though, so you won't get a overall. Well, you can guarantee it needs to be iconic women, colourful, just.
Yeah. I'm interested in kind of politics and economics and current affairs, so I'm all stacked up on that. But don't worry, we're not going to cover that today. There's a lot going on in the world.
It's not that space.
It's not that space. What are we going to talk about today? We are going to talk about the primitive brain.
We are.
And I thought the reason we should talk about it is because, first of all, you talk about it so much in your work, and it's really important for us to understand that, to be able to make changes in how we think. But also, I've realised that in some of the topics coming up in future podcasts, we're going to be coming back to the primitive brain. So I thought we should get to know our primitive brains a bit better before we delve into some of the other topics. Are you up for that?
Absolutely. Do you want me to start?
I mean, you're the expert.
Questions?
So well, first of all, why don't you start by explaining what's the difference between the primitive brain and then the kind of calm thinking brain that we experience every day, so people can just start to identify what's what.
Of course. And primitive brain, you might have heard called your chimp brain or lizard brain. It has it will show up in different guises depending on who's talking about it. But in hypnotherapy, we will talk about primitive brain, but also your wonderful logical brain, which is your prefrontal cortex. And
which, by the way, that's just to explain where that is. That's just literally the bit just behind your forehead is the prefrontal cortex.
Yes.
And primitive brain is at the top of the brainstem, so it's at the top of your
I was please
neck.
Please tell me, go in your head and point to where your primitive brain
is. I'm trying. I want people to literally understand the physiology of this.
It's very important. Love it. Okay, so we will talk about logical brain and primitive brain. Logical brain is the part that we know as you. It's the part that's interacting. It's the part that's telling me to talk about Kate Moss. It's the part that's telling you, pull on this, link this back to what we talked about before. And so that is the part that's quite calm. It's quite rational. And it's a wonderful part of your brain. Now, your primitive part is also wonderful. It's just in a slightly different way, because that is the part of our brain that has been with us since the dawn of time. So since we were cave women, right back in the day. And the only function of that part of the brain was to keep us alive. So to protect us from bears, other tribes people, hard winters. Its main job is just to flag danger. But the problem is with our primitive brain is it hasn't evolved at the same rate as modern day life. So where we would have seen those bears, lions, tigers and bears, oh my. Now it's like my boss, being traffic on the road, losing my keys, arguing with friends. Oh my, So our primitive brain is flagging the threats that are definitely stresses in our lives, but aren't necessarily actual threats to our lives at the same severity level. And what we find as well is that as our anxiety goes up, we'll tend to think about things, we'll descend into that primitive part of the brain, and we lose intellectual control because effectively we're just shutting down all that wonderful logical prefrontal cortex, and we're just descending into that real primal space where we're reacting from anxiety, anger, depression, and we're always thinking about things from the worst case scenario. And it's just so you think about your clients in the city at the moment. They go to one meeting and they have a bonus delivered and it's not what they expect. But in their head, their primitive brain is trying to flag the dangers coming down the road. So they've already been to blooming like 50 bonus meetings and all have been a complete disaster. So that anxiety about the future starts to build. And when we have those anxious thoughts, they really can start to snowball into a place when we're really feeling in our primitive brain. Because when we think about things, for our brain, there's very little difference chemically between when we imagine something and when we do it in real life. Hence why thinking about those bonus meetings, thinking about the things that we've got coming up in the line that require attention, really starts to build that anxiety. And we're thinking from the worst case scenario, and we can get into a real place where we're just really acting from those real primitive emotive urges, because our primitive brain is very emotionally driven. As I said before, it's anger, anxiety, and depression. And those are very powerful emotions because our primitive brain doesn't want anything to get lost in translation, that this is serious, we need to pay attention to it, we need to deal with it. However, it's not doing that in a very helpful way because it's just really just flagging it and then allowing chaos to unfold. It's not allowing our logical brain to sort of step in and come up with creative solutions. Because as you know, and I know, like my clients are amazing. They know the answers that are right for them, but their primitive brain will, because it's a very loud voice, will convince them otherwise and convince them that they're just in this awful survival state where it just doesn't serve them to move forward at all.
Well, I want to get into some examples to illustrate that, but I think just to kind of recap on some of the physiology there so people really understand what's happening is that when you perceive any kind of threat, whether someone cuts you up in traffic or even, as you said, you think in advance about a meeting with your boss going wrong. So the threat doesn't even need to be happening, but you think about a threat, or you have a difficult relationship with your partner and you suddenly think they're about to break up with you. What happens is your body senses danger, activates the primitive brain, and it actually prioritizes. It takes oxygen away from the prefrontal cortex into the primitive brain. So the prefrontal cortex really can't work. And that's why, actually, we'll talk in a bit about strategies to get out of it, but slowing your heart rate and breathing deeply, you need to reoxygenate that part. So you're not entirely in control of it. The primitive brain kicks in to protect you. And generally it has three things it thinks about. It's because in the wild, I mean, you talk about our ancestors, but to be honest, there are millions of people in the world every day, if not billions, who are under actual threat of dying. So the primitive brain is trying to keep us safe from threats that can exist in real life. You and I could be out on the street and someone could pull a knife on us. You need your primitive
100%.
brain because it will respond instinctively. It does not have time to think about what do I do? And so it's kind of got three things it assesses. It's like friend, foe, food. So it's like, is this person coming towards me friendly, in which case I can calm down and it's fine and collaborate? Are they a foe? And we've all had that instinctive feeling where you see someone and think, I don't like this and I'm going to cross the road, go a different way, get around people. And that instinct will often save us. So it's not all bad. It's like, but foe or food, because it's survival linked. So this is why under stress, when our primitive brain is very active, we might either want to snack and eat all the time.
Yes.
Or we can go completely the other way, which you've talked about before, which is where, because it's not helpful to have a full stomach when the lion's chasing you, we actually get a very upset stomach and then we don't want to eat. But it's very simple. It's friend foe food, and it's assessing that in less than a second.
Exactly that. Because you got in your primitive brain, you've got your amygdala, which is the control center, and you've got your hippocampus, which is where your pre-patterned responses are stored, and your sometimes inappropriate phobic behaviors are stored there. And also you've got your hypothalamus, which is regulating the chemical responses. So you're absolutely right. Data will come in, whether that's through your vision or like assessing someone, stuff that you hear, and your amygdala will go, is this a threat? And it will have a chat with your hippocampus, and it will say, have we got a pattern for this? And hippocampus will go, yes or no. And if there is still a perceived threat, amygdala will chat to your hypothalamus, which is then go, right, there's a threat. We need adrenaline. We need all those like stress hormones. Hence, when you feel immediately under danger or you're feeling very anxious, like you said, emptying of the stomach, sweaty palms, your heart beats fast, you might find it hard to control your breathing because you're getting ready to run and evade that threat. And like you say, primitive brain is something that we need every day. But it happens in that reaction, that chatting to the hippocampus, the hypothalamus, the assessment, nanoseconds.
Yeah.
Absolute nanoseconds. It's never going to be something you're going to be able to get in front of. But when you're in it, there are some really helpful strategies that we can talk about.
Before we come on to strategies though, I want, again, to give some people some real examples so they can start to think about when this has happened to them. So for example, you're in a meeting at work, and then somebody points out that you've made a mistake in something. And the way they do it isn't in a kind, respectful way. They do it in a way that's implying you're not good at your job. At least that's how you're hearing it. You suddenly feel very stressed. Your heart rate goes, and you might, because you suddenly see that person as a foe.
Yes.
Your primitive brain suddenly says, watch out, this person's trying to kick you out of your job, which they really might not be. They might be trying to help by just pointing out an error. They're going to kick me out of my job. And then because the primal brain is all about survival, it makes a very quick hop, skip and a jump to, I'm going to lose my job. I won't have any money. I can't feed my family.
Yes.
I'm going to starve and die.
Yeah.
So it goes to death.
Death, yeah.
So if you think this person said something in this meeting and your brain thinks that leads to death, what happens? You go into fight, flight or freeze. So you're either suddenly feeling very defensive and you get all riled up. We see people in meetings you come back very strong, very defensive. Or you freeze, you don't know what to say because your brain's like, you know, some animals, when they come at you, you're meant to just stay still. So your brain's like, just stay still, it'll be fine. Or you want to run away. You couldn't get out of that meeting fast enough and you never want to see that person again. And all of that is not a proportionate or appropriate response to what's just happened. But that's an example. Can you think of other examples of where the primitive brain takes over and kind of escalates a situation like that?
Do you know, it's just a good point to make, as well as a lot of clients will come to me and they'll say, oh, I wish, they'll see people in interactions like where there's been like some conflict, and they'll see people respond in a very sort of calm, like witty way, and they're like, I wish I could think that. And they'll say, I can think about all these things after the moment.
Oh, I've had the comebacks after.
Yes, exactly. But in the moment, I'm one of them. I can't come up with anything witty in the moment. I'm not that person. But that is just a really good example of how we've literally shut off all that wonderful witty responses, all that lovely knowledge in logical brain, and we've just descended into that primitive brain. So that's just another lovely example. But
I think also on a personal level, we see it where people suddenly like have a sudden breakup, whether it's romantic or a friendship, where something happens that they perceive as a threat, and their brain just says, I can't deal with this, just cut the whole thing, cut the whole relationship. When I was younger, I definitely had a very strong instinct. I didn't act on it, but I used to have a very strong instinct. I'd go out with people who were great. I'd want to break up with them like once or twice a month. I would know not to, but something would happen and I'd just have this instinct of just stop it to control it.
yes.
And again, that's the primitive brain, and it's just calming down and going, wait a minute, like, what is this really about? Why do I perceive that as such a threat? And is it just that actually, because I really value this person, when they're upset with me, like it really stresses me out? and then I want to leave that situation. It's like we're most afraid of being rejected by the people we like the most.
Yes.
It's that kind of, the primitive brain is very connected to fear of rejection from the tribe.
Exactly that, because we were and we still are tribal people, and we want to be included in that tribe. And there's literally any kind of tiny hint that we're going to be ejected and given the old heave ho, primitive brain is like, no, you need to dial it back. Another, because something I've been thinking about a lot as well is that the wonderful women are sometimes told by the world, you're too much, you need to dial it down. And then people, because this message resonates on such primitive level that they don't want to be excluded from the tribe, they do then start to like dim their light. What I would just say to you is you not find the right tribe.
Yes.
And there are people that want you to be your whole self all of the time. But yes, that is another, I don't know if I talked about it last week, but I know I mentioned it to you about, or a couple of clients. It's like even that need to be in the tribe is always still so prevalent, because I was at a set of traffic lights and I was the first in 3 lanes.
Oh yeah, no, you said it on the last pod. Yeah.
And it's like you want to, so for those that didn't listen, it's like you don't, even if the light goes green and you start to move, if no one else moves, you're like, should we be going? Should we? Like, it's literally your primitive brain is just really, it's sometimes when we find that anxiety is really starting, and that self-sabotage and that overwhelm is really starting to control our lives, primitive brain is just taking its job a little too seriously.
And so that's where I want to now move on to the strategies of how do we spot when we're suddenly acting from the primitive brain? What can we do both in the short term and the long term to not let it drive the train, so to speak, to not let it be in control of our actions that are things we might later regret? You know, I think most of the time, if you've overreacted to something, that's just your primitive brain reacting, right? Mm-hmm. So how start from the very beginning. When you're helping clients, you know, navigate this, where do you get them to start in terms of even recognizing when it's kicking in?
So what is really key in terms of before, with primitive brain, because it is there to keep us alive, we're never going to be able to sort of win and override it. So the best we can do, or the best place to start, is make sure that it's as calm as can be going into daily life as you can. So things like our sleep is very important to our well-being, because our brain is doing a wonderful process called REM, where it's like self-cleaning. Someone described it as, which was beautiful, as it's like your brain doing its own therapy at night. It's stripping out all those emotional memories, it's processing them and putting them into logical brain where you can feel more in control of them. So having your sleep is the best place to start. Make sure you're having good regular sleep routines, because that will just help you start off on the best day, and you will be able to retain more cognitive control, and you will be able to come up with some level of witty comeback if you feel like you need to. So that's a really good place. You can also, if you feel like you're in that meeting or you're in a situation, you mentioned it earlier, going back to your breath and helping you settle yourself from your breath by doing, I like to just do there are many different breathing practices, but bringing yourself into the present moment and just doing a in breath for, say, a count of 5 and out for a count of 7. Whatever numbers you're playing with, 4 and 6, 10 and 12 or 15, whatever you want to, as long as that out breath is longer, it has a real settling effect on our nervous system, so we can feel calmer. And it's just having also as well, like affirmations, sayings you can say to yourself. It's like just reassuring yourself, like, it's okay, this will pass.
I like something like, I can handle this.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Just telling yourself, I can handle this. Ahead of a meeting, I can handle this.
Yeah.
And I think it's about, as you said, if you're going into something you know will be stressful, a few deep breaths in, slow breaths out, like center yourself. Maybe try and preview in your mind the meeting going well.
Exactly.
But also, I think you've hit on a good point just overall about your basic stress levels. Because if you've got this cup of water, if this is like the amount of stress you've got in your cup, and then you go into a stressful meeting and it puts a bit more water in the cup, that's okay, you can handle that. Mm-hmm. But if your cup's already full, so you're already super stressed about everything that's going in, you've been rushing around all morning, you're worried about the kids, you've had a couple of cups of coffee, that revs up your stress system, so your adrenaline's already going. And then you go in the meeting and someone says something antagonistic, that's the drop of water that spills over the stress bucket and your primitive brain kicks in.
Yes.
So if your overall stress levels are higher, the primitive brain is going to kick in much more quickly,
Exactly
more frequently. So the first thing actually, before we even think about when it's kicked in, is just find those practices that are grounding, meditation, sleep. I find journaling really helpful to manage my stress levels so that you're just much calmer overall. And then it definitely just kicks in less frequently. I've really found like doing that work for myself means that when I first started out in banking, I think my primitive brain was driving the train every day. And one of the things was I was,
unsurprisingly,
constantly feeling anxious, waiting for the next bad thing to happen. But because of all the work I've done, now I go into, work meetings, corporate meetings, public speaking scenarios from such a calm place that when something goes wrong, like when I walk up on stage, as this happened to me, and as I walk up onto the stage, they say, oh, the tech isn't working, you've got to do your hour keynote with no slides.
amazing, perfect.
I'm like, yeah, okay, fine, like whatever, I can do it because I've centered myself, I'm calm, I've previewed it going well, I can handle it. Whereas before, when my overall anxiety was really high, well, that would send me into a tailspin.
Yes.
So first things first, just get your anxiety under control, develop meditation practices, calm mind practices, center yourself before you go into a stressful setting.
Yes, definitely. And your sleep is really important, as you said, having like those little sort of peppy phrases, because your primitive brain is like a 3-year-old child. You need to think about how you can soothe it, but don't make it like a poem of something that you need to say. It has to literally be, it's okay. We're okay.
This.
Yeah, exactly. It has to be like you wouldn't read a poem to a 3-year-old child to calm them down.
Yeah, like when they fall over, you don't give them a whole lecture.
No.
You're like, don't worry, it's fine.
It's all right. It's cool. You're cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you're cool is is a good one. Also, when our bucket is very full, as you said, when we've got a lot going in our bucket and we can't necessarily impact on that immediately, it's important that we pay attention to the nice things in our lives. Like, for example, having wonderful, positive conversations with people that you care about and you feel safe with. Positive action, having a walk, having a bath. Oh my gosh. Watching a TV series,
but
and
not one with lots
thinking.
of murder.
Oh no, not the full.
Not the full.
No.
This bothers me. A lot of people spend their TV time watching documentaries about serial killers. What do you think that is telling your primitive brain? It is telling your primitive brain that the world is full of serial killers and serial rapists and horrible people, which, okay, there are some of them, but like a tiny, tiny amount. But our brain is listening to the input. So if you're just reading negative news and you're just watching these scary TV programs, primitive brain is going to be on the alert for psychos everywhere. So it's watching things that are calming, funny, genuinely relaxing.
Even like sad and angry music will affect your well-being. It's like trying to elevate yourself away from the things that, I don't know whether enjoy is the right word, but you'll feel drawn to, and try and just switch it up into a much more like a pet, like just even if you pick, there's some really nice playlists on Spotify, like coffee beats that are just like, what did I describe? It's like mushrooms in chilled out Ibiza.
We need that.
But it's just a beat. It's just a vibey beat, and
it's priming. So I'm sure we'll go into this more in another podcast.
Yeah.
But priming is basically using any cues of your senses. So it can be a sound, a smell, a sight that puts you in a particular place. So I have playlists for different moods I want to be in. And I've got this one called Good Morning. So cheesy. It's just if I want to have a good morning, which I do every day, and I listen to it and I just can't be in a bad mood, and it's so cheesy and upbeat and peppy, but it works every time. Beautiful. So it's like you can use music to prime your brain 100%. To be in a positive place, but you could also listen to things that are stressful and then your primal brain's getting ready to kick in.
Think about the Rocky theme song. And the Eye of the Tiger.
Rocky, is that what you're talking about? Eye of the Tiger.
Eye of the Tiger, and then you have and then obviously,
and then you run up the stairs, which
exactly.
I've done that. I've run up the actual stairs and done the punching at the top like an idiot.
No, you're not, because that's what I love that for you. That's brilliant. I would love to do that.
Yeah, and then you feel invincible.
Yes. And that is the power of that music, and that. So yeah, when you feel like you're drawn to that real sort of melancholic music, think about the effect that you can generate like you can literally generate so many powerful emotions in a positive way. The same way you can do if in feeling not yourself, not your full logical wonderful self, I would say.
So these are all ways we can reduce the chance of it kicking in. But let's now talk about, you're in a situation where the primitive brain has kicked in. So someone said the thing that's provoked it, or you've suddenly had a fear, you started to worry about something that's come up, and the hijack has happened. What are some of the telltale signs to spot that the hijack has happened? And then how do we quickly calm the primitive brain so we can get back into logical prefrontal cortex?
You'll feel it will be very visceral, and you'll feel that react because you won't be able. It's like, for me, there's nothing. So anger, anxiety, depression, and and it can be a mixture of three. Mine is rage. Sometimes I probably shouldn't admit that sometimes, but it's literally like, we were saying about it happening in nanoseconds. I can literally feel it rise up like a volcano in me.
So when you feel the rage, that's your sign that it's kicked in.
Yeah, and it's time to, that is the time that, some people, you might feel like you can't quite breathe. You might just find that you're like everything sort of, the outside world sort of dials down, and your senses become very heightened. You might not be able to think clearly at all. You just find it's very like, people say about the red mist.
Yes, it can be the red mist.
Exactly.
I think it's just like you said, it's a shift in feeling into something negative. Whether it's rage, whether it's anger, nausea. I think mine goes, I'm not a very angry person. Mine goes into anxiety or self-doubt. So suddenly I am like a relentlessly positive person. I might suddenly find that I'm suddenly thinking about something in a very negative way. Or I think paranoia is often a sign that it's happened. Like you're suddenly feeling like people are against you, or people aren't trying to help you. So it's first of all, it's a emotion, but it can also be physical sensation. So it can be rapid heart rate. Your temperature can change. You can suddenly go cold. I think we've all had that feeling where you suddenly, especially if something, you have a negative instinct about something, you can go very cold, sit very still, or suddenly have a lot of energy. That's the flight where you want to move or run. So it's really starting to pick up on that shift in mindset and physical symptoms, and learn for yourself, because it's different for everyone, but start to learn for yourself, what does that feel like? Because then that's your first cue that that's happening.
Exactly that. And then, do you know, one of the key things, they say when you lose your temper, my mum used to say to me, lose the temper, you lose the argument. It's when you're in that emotional state, if you can, and no good can come of it. No emotional decisions or emotional interactions are ever really that good long term.
Yeah.
It's, if you can remove yourself just gently from the situation, that is amazing. Even if you just go, I just need to take a couple of minutes. Or even, do you know what? Because we're not 5-year-olds anymore. In work meetings, you are able to say, just going to pop to the toilet. You can do that. Just take yourself away for that situation, to give yourself like that little pep talk of, you're cool, you're okay. Go to the toilet, distract your body and allow your breathing just to calm yourself down. First and foremost, if you can remove yourself from that situation.
Yeah, so remove yourself from the threat. And it's coming back to children. You're basically taking the time out. Like we put a child on the naughty step, but it's give yourself a time out. Take yourself to the bathroom if you can, and just recognise that you're having that reflexive reaction. Now, if you can't leave the room, which sometimes happens in a work setting, this is where practising techniques. So I would sometimes really slow my breathing down if I realised I felt under threat. There's a great technique called the butterfly hug that they designed to help people who'd suffered from mass disasters like tsunamis, where you couldn't get lots of individual therapy. They taught people this technique where you stroke your arms shoulder to elbow, and it really calms your nervous system. If you just do this for a couple of minutes, it really works. Now at work, it might look odd if you do that, but you can do it under a table. You can actually just do it on your legs.
Even if
you have to cross your hands, because it's actually it's a brain hack where it puts you into your parasympathetic nervous system. So you can just, or you can even just tap your legs, but it's crossing the body. So you can just do some gentle techniques that people don't notice. Grounding, I would push my feet into the floor, and it brings you back into your body and out of your kind of panicked thoughts. But it's about recognizing it's happening and practicing going, okay, my first instinct right now might not be the right one. And you can, I promise you, over time, you can train yourself to not act on it. You can go, what is my instinct? But don't act on it.
Exactly.
And so even if you can't leave the meeting, it's just recognizing it and just slowing down, grounding. Buy yourself some time. If someone's asking for your response, ask them a question back.
Yes.
Get them talking so you can just regroup and center yourself. Like, these are good techniques that you can really use if you're like in a meeting scenario. But if it's not a meeting and you can just leave, just saying to someone, you know what, I need a breather. And if say it's your partner, I can feel a bit hostile if you just storm out and slam the door.
Yeah.
But if you say, you know what, I just need 10 minutes. I'm going to come back in 10 minutes.
Yes.
So they know that you're coming back. And you just take 10 minutes to calm yourself and come back in a grounded way. Ultimately, they'll thank you because they're going to get a better you if you've gone out, taken a few deep breaths. I always like to remind myself of my long-term goals as well, because my short-term goal might be, I never want to speak to you again. But my long-term goal might be, I want to have a really happy, healthy relationship.
Yes.
So that doesn't involve storming out and slamming a door.
No.
That involves coming back and having an adult conversation about what's really going on.
Exactly.
And even if after 10 minutes you're still not feeling it, coming back and saying, look, I hear you. Can we talk about this another day? Like, I really want to have a productive conversation. I just feel quite stressed about this. And, you know, hopefully they're in a place that they can understand that as well. So buying some time, absolutely.
Yes. Another really good one, if you're in a presentation situation, a meeting as well, is have water with you. Have a sip of water, because there's something, especially if you start to feel the panic rise in you and you're like, oh my gosh, I look stupid. Because it might not even be that someone says something. It might be something that we're going to talk about next episode, about that voice inside you, where it's like, oh my goodness, like, I don't know anything. Everyone thinks I'm stupid. Everyone looks at me. And if you find that start to rise, again, that's quite hard to sort of talk yourself out of. So if you have like a sip of water or something that just, it's almost like a little reset for your brain.
Yes.
It just breaks that cycle. It's like, oh, okay, we're having
Like
a little
exactly. Disruptor. Yeah. And even, you know, it's where humour can be helpful. When we use humour to deflect or just shift an energy. Sometimes if there's that tension in a conversation and it's creating that stress, someone making a little bit of a joke about it and everyone can laugh and shake it off.
Yes.
Like we see animals when they're stressed, they shake.
Yes.
To get the adrenaline out of their bodies. They recognise they need to move. So finding a bit of humour in a situation can help you and the other person calm down as well. Okay, so we've kind of managed to spot that we're doing it. We've calmed ourselves down. We're getting back into our prefrontal cortex. We're making some good decisions. Is there anything else we need to do though to make that primal brain happy with the outcome or happy with the situation, so it's not like for days afterwards still rerunning what's happening and still getting you stressed about the situation?
That again is like how you would deal with a 3-year-old. It's like distracting it with something good. You know how if they start to cry, you'll be like, oh, look at the keys, you know. I'm not even joking. Like, it's like if your primitive brain starts to go off on like the doom spiral into the whirlpool, it's like, oh, but look, the daffodils are coming out. Or you have to manage your primitive brain with the same level of care and also at the same level as a 3-year-old, basically.
Can I add a slightly more adult version, although I love that, is because sometimes we can start distracting ourselves with unhealthy things like food and shopping and gambling and whatever. Like there are unhealthy ways the distraction kicks in.
It's the small sort of tiny things.
It's like a happy, positive reward. I do think this is where gratitude practice can come in. And if I'm finding my primitive brain is hijacking me, just get a page and write down 10 things you're grateful for and get your brain back in a happy place of there's whatever this one thing that's stressing you out. There are always so many things to be grateful for. There are so many great things.
Yes.
happening.
Moving your body. Another one, if you can take yourself for a walk.
Exercise, burn the adrenaline off.
Yes, listen to happy music or motivational music, even if like the Rocky. Nothing wrong with Rocky's theme song.
No, definitely have your Eye of the Tiger playlist.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we wrap up, I want to talk about risk management. I know that sounds like super sexy and interesting, but one of the things our primitive brain is doing is it's managing risk. And actually, you know what? I need to apologise to my primitive brain because in a previous podcast, I talked about like my loser brain. And that does work in terms of recognising some thought patterns. But our primitive brain is there to keep us alive.
Yes.
And so we do need to be grateful for it because, as I said, it's also responsible for those instincts that we as women should listen to that suddenly tell us, wait, something's up here. I think a lot of us have had an experience with someone where a relationship didn't turn out well and we had a feeling about it at the very beginning. I was just working with a client recently on they're leaving a job they're not happy in, and they shared with me that in their first interview with their boss, they had a weird feeling.
Really?
And their boss wasn't inappropriate.
No.
They just weren't actually a great boss, but they had an intuition about it that they didn't listen to.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, I think we need to be thankful that that exists, and we're not trying to tune that out entirely. No. We've got to make friends with it. So I do think one of the things that helps with the primitive brain is also listen to what it's telling you and maybe write down or reflect on what are the risks it's trying to flag to you, and recognise, are they real or not? And you'll quickly be able to spot, okay, that isn't really a threat. Okay, yes, someone pointed out a mistake in the meeting, but no, I'm not really going to lose my job over it. So you can just start to look at the evidence and say, okay, that's bullshit, but at least you're looking at it. But sometimes it's spotting a real risk that's real.
Yes.
And it might be actually, that I've had people come after my jobs. So my instinct about them where I've thought, there's something up there, has been right. They have been trying to get me out of a job. Or you might have an instinct about someone you're friends with or you're in a relationship that they're working an agenda with you. Pay attention to those, and if you think they could be reasonable, rather than panicking about them, work out how to mitigate them. Say, okay, if that is a real risk, how do I protect myself from that? If I've got this person at work who might be out to get me, how do I make sure my boss has my back? How do I build support elsewhere in the business or show that I'm good? I always think it's helpful to have a good financial buffer in your bank account if you can, just so that if you are ever worried about losing your job, you go, well, at least I'm safe for a few months. If it's in a relationship, do you need to just pull back a little bit? How do you make sure you're boundaried with that person? Or how do you make sure you don't put them in too powerful a position to damage your life or damage your work? So I do think we do need to spend a bit of time with the primitive brain and check in, what is it trying to tell us? What are the risks? Be thankful that it's trying to flag them. Identify which are just getting it carried away, which are genuine risks, and then doing a bit of risk management. And when you do that and you listen to it and you manage the risks, you find it stops shouting at you. It stops shouting at you like, watch out, there's a lion at the entrance of the cave, because you've heard it. You've said, I've heard there's a lion. I've put up a big fence.
Yes,
the lion can't come in.
Yeah. And that's really, so Michael Phelps is famous obviously for his gold being the most successful Olympian of all time.
I mean, yeah, at one point he definitely was, yeah.
Anyway, but what he used to do in terms of like that risk management, he would rehearse his races. If his goggles fell off midway through, he'd do it without his goggles.
Oh, wow.
He would basically, when obviously feeling logical and calm, he would rehearse the bad things going wrong. So he got his primitive brain to a place where it was comfortable that if in a race scenario it happened, it was just a normal training session because he'd already done it and he'd already planned it. So therefore he was less likely to descend into that primitive brain, lose his mind and mess up the race, because it's like, oh, we've already been here, we've planned for this, we've already got a plan. So it's having like those little, like you say, rehearsing and putting those risk management techniques in place.
I love that. What a great point to end. So we hope we've helped you, first of all, understand your primitive brain a bit better and actually maybe make friends with it.
Yes.
And see that it's a good thing, but also not letting it hijack you and maybe making you do things that you maybe shouldn't.
Yes.
And help you identify when it's kicking in. Buy yourself a bit of time, calm down, and make some rational decisions.